gentlemen, welcome to another kind of like unique video. And this is actually something I like the last video I said, well, it's a research. I think this is like profound, okay? Because many a times, when people get married late, and this is especially, I saw this in a marriage, like I would say probably 95%. I only noticed this when I was studying the marriage charts of people. So let's say, for example, somebody's 35, 36, and they're still single and looking for marriage. And when you look at their birth chart, the seventh lord, Venus, Jupiter, Dharakarka are not being influenced by malefics, are not being aspected by malefics in birth or even Navamsha. And yet it's being delayed. Now, the very first thing that comes to my mind is that, okay, well, I think the timing has to be wrong. But then, one thing I started noticing is that when two planets are exact same degree in your birth chart, they'll aspect each other. And once you realize this fact, and then once I went back and kind of saw why this is not working, and I'm like, okay, it makes sense now. So for example, let's say you have Venus in the ninth house. Okay, so let's say for Aries ascendant, Venus is in the ninth house at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. Forget nakshatras and all that. You have Saturn in the 11th house, and it's direct. All the planets are direct that I'm mentioning. So Venus is at 12 degrees in the 9th house in Sagittarius. Saturn is in the 11th house in Aquarius at 12 degrees. Okay, so 12 degrees for Venus, 12 degrees for Saturn. Saturn is not aspecting the 7th house, 7th lord, or Venus in this case. Okay. But because Saturn is at the exact degree as Venus, it's now looking at Venus. Because Saturn doesn't have an 11th aspect where it's going to look at 11th place from itself. But because it's the same degree, it's now impacting Venus. So Saturn is what? Saturn is a planet of delay. And because of that, it's delaying the marriage. Same thing, let's say all the planets are fine, okay? And let's say you are a Gemini ascendant. Jupiter rules your 7th house. And let's say Jupiter is actually in the ascendant at 19 degrees of Gemini. And then you have Saturn in the 12th house at 19 degrees of Taurus. And let's say Venus is in the 11th house sitting. Dharakarka, is in the 4th house sitting, not receiving any impact or aspect of Saturn. And neither the 7th house is receiving. But because of the fact Jupiter, the 7th lord, and Saturn are at exact same degrees, Saturn is going to be impacting Jupiter and delaying those significance. So same thing you can do with Mars. If Mars, let's say, aspects Venus in the same scenario, Mars has a, 4, 7, and 8th aspect from itself. But let's say Venus is in the 10th house. Venus is in the 11th house. Venus is in the 2nd house from Mars. Okay, Venus is 10th, 11th, or 2nd house from Mars. But Mars is at 7 degrees. Venus is at 7 degrees. Then you can clearly see one will definitely have like a heartbreak in their life. Because Mars is a planet that has that spear. Mars is a planet that has that sword. It cuts whatever it looks at. That's the first thing it does. Before it gives you courage, before it gives you any, strength to fight or to overcome something, the first it's going to do is going to cut. Okay, I've cut you, now try to overcome this. That's how Mars works. So because Mars is at the exact same degree as Venus, you will see, why am I going through such devastating heartbreaks in my life? That's because of Mars. And usually it does that before marriage. Before you actually end up with someone, a couple of relationships of an individual will have that pierce in the heart. Now, if let's say Venus is exalted, Venus is at literally 25th degree of Pisces. Okay, and Venus is sitting in the 10th house. And let's say Rahu goes into the 5th house. And Rahu and Venus are both at 25th degree of their respective signs. In that case, one will never see that why somebody's spouse would have a very flamboyant, a very exoticness to them. Why is there a foreign element to this individual when it's not seen in the birth of Navamsha? So I'm even saying, let's say Navamsha doesn't have it. Okay. There's no element of foreignness upon Venus. And obviously in the man's chart, we will look at Venus as the wife for marriage. But because of that exact degree of Rahu upon Venus, you will see the impact of Rahu go upon Venus and Venus's impact going upon Rahu. So start definitely looking at this, because this will kind of like broaden your perspective as to why something is happening in the chart that you may not be able to figure out. Like even by transit, when two planets are exact same degree, and yet they're not in a particular place where they have their mutual aspect, they're not exchanging each other's signs, one's not aspecting the other. If they're just in these positions where just have nothing to do with each other, but they run exact same degree, they both create an impact on each other. So not only in the birth chart, but even in the transit chart, you can see that. Okay. So anyway, guys, if you're new to my channel, subscribe below so you don't miss these type of videos. And if you want to know where your planets are placed, what degrees they're at in your birth chart, so you can see if they're kind of like looking at each other. For that, check out the links here. Check out my full astrological report, including my books, consultations, and a link to my academy, Vedic Astrology Academy, including my new book, Nakshatras at the Speed of Light, which you will also find at this link. Otherwise, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.